I'm going to introduce each of the three candidates, and then they will give a brief introduction of themselves and discussion of the things that they want you to know about from their stand. So in order to get us going, let me start by introducing the person to my left. Chuck Alexander is Vice President for Professional Activities, and he will make the first statement.
Well, good morning. I get a chance to speak a lot all over, and it's a very unusual time that we're in. If we take a look at our historical past, we can see that we've created and built some incredible things. We've put a man on the moon. We've created spacecraft that are now leaving our solar system and flying out into the universe. Our sun, 5 billion years from now, will burn up, and Earth as we know it will cease to exist. And yet at least 4 of our spacecrafts will be flying through the heavens, a testament to the engineering skills that we, during our generations, have gone ahead and shown the world. It's a very exciting time technically. We're looking at a period where we will see computers that will be so powerful that the way we do our engineering business will change dramatically. We will probably see more engineering in the next 10 years because of these advanced computers than we've ever seen before in our history. It's an exciting time technically. And yet, if we go ahead and take a look at our careers, it's probably one of the worst times for our profession. I have spoken to engineers all over, in the United States and outside the United States. And the number one concern all these engineers have is or will be jobs. What is your career going to go? What is your career going to be like? What are you going to do as an engineer? At one point in time, you could go to work for a company and expect to work in that company for all of your career. The utility industry, extremely stable, and a number of other areas, lifetime employment. That's no longer true. You can go to work for a company yesterday and find out that that company is different today, and tomorrow may be even bought out by a third company. Companies are reorganizing. The way engineers do their business is changing dramatically. Now is a very important time for IEEE to understand these career problems. We must work together to help more than ever engineers with their careers and professional activities. Now, more than ever, you as a member of IEEE must be actively involved and help us help you with your career. And as your president, I will do the best I can within my power to make sure IEEE is there for you. Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce our second candidate, Don Bolle, Vice President for Technical Activities.
Thanks very much, Delores. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Our institute has just about a year or so ago completed 30 years of service, and it has attempted to serve concurrently the U.S. members as well as a global membership. As the IEEE membership expanded from about 50,000 at the time of its formation to the current several hundred thousand, its complexity obviously has increased as the complexity of the world has increased. And we must move along with that, both as members of the Institute, as volunteers, and indeed as staff. It's become very evident that the Institute must respond and meet much more effectively the changing needs of our members and the impact of the declining world economy. The effect of ever more rapid changes in technology also have considerable impact on our members, on the way we as volunteers work now and will work in the future, and indeed it will also have a substantial impact on the staff of the IEEE. My background in the IEEE really started at the local level. I was first involved in sections and served in a number of offices there, and after that became active in societies and ultimately, of course, reached the position of Vice President of Technical Activities. In that position, one has inevitable contact with the members around the world and becomes aware only too readily of the tremendous variety of needs and expectations that are out there. At the same time, we also have to recognize in the IEEE that this institution is the only professional organization that is available to U.S. members. And that's why earlier I referred to the need of the IEEE to serve concurrently the professional interest and, of course, the technical interest of the U.S. members, for which the IEEE is the only organization, as well as the worldwide membership. The globalization effort of the IEEE recognizes this and recognizes that in some areas we've fallen short. It is my opinion, and I'm persuaded, that in order to serve the U.S. members well, we must be a global organization. Technology is developing worldwide, good work is going on in many corners of the world, and the IEEE must be sure to be the institution where that work is gathered and disseminated. In order to be able to do that effectively, we must have a worldwide members. So to serve the U.S. membership, which is still a majority of our members, well, we must make sure that the IEEE concurrently is a strong global institution. It serves two functions, therefore. The world has become a smaller place. That helps us, and we have been the instruments of change. We have been effective in ways that many of us have not foreseen and cannot foresee in impacting the political and social structure, and inevitably we are part, increasingly, of the economic development of the world, which increasingly relies heavily and is utterly dependent upon the technologies that we provide. Along with that come certain social responsibilities that we cannot ignore, and I look forward to further exploring those issues as President with you. If nominated and elected, I will work during the time given in the terms of President-elect, President, and past presidents to move forward the affairs of the Institute. We have a wonderful blueprint in the strategic plan that was recently developed and that involved volunteers and members around the world in its development and in its final production. I believe it is a good blueprint for the future, and I pledge my energies towards seeing the fulfillment of the promise that is inherent in that document. Thank you.
Our third candidate is Wally Reed, who is currently Vice President for Standards.
Thank you, Delores, and thank you for the opportunity to come and visit with you and explain my position as a very sincere candidate for this office. In campaigns like this one, we tend to, or at least we have an overwhelming temptation to dwell on negative things in our operation and so on. But up front, I'd like to say that I believe that we are a great organization and we've done great things. And we have tremendous volunteer resources. And they are the envy of many people. I think we're positioned to respond to changing circumstances. And I believe we can face a lot of greater challenges ahead of us. So I don't want, in anything I say, to let you focus on, or not, at least not lose sight of our strengths. But we are engineers, and typically we seek perfection in everything we do. And here is why we are debating some improvements in our organization. I'm an IEEE member who comes out of industry, and I'd like to address some improvements that I feel we need to pursue. And they're improvements which should concern about 70% of our membership who work in industry. I think sometimes we forget that 70% of our members are industry employees. And I just want to use a couple of examples to illustrate that. In the various industry luncheons that we've conducted around the world, around the US and elsewhere, it's been striking to me when we put forth the one question that's often asked, which is, what does the IEEE provide for you that you can't get elsewhere? And in my summary of those industry luncheons, the 4 categories that are stated are a forum for technical exchange, standards, continuing education and training, and publications. And it comes out time after time when we're talking to industry executives. So we need to address those points, and I don't think we're adequately addressing them at the moment. The second is that if you listen to the Section Congress gatherings and their recommendations in 1990 and 1993, you will see up front that they are concerned about those same kinds of issues. And they do not feel they're being well served in this organization, and I think that's a major challenge for us to move ahead on. I've listed in my candidate statement, which all of us have written, some points, and you will receive them with the ballot, and I hope you read them and judge them on their value. Basically, I want to make sure we have an efficient business-like staff operation. I want to see us make better use of our own technologies and accelerating the production of publications and other services. I want to advance industry relationships, because in my opinion, the biggest problem we have in employment, which has already been pointed out as a very serious matter, is that industry relationships with our members is not as good as it should be. Our economies are going to improve when industry is vibrant. And our industry is only going to be vibrant when we use our technologies and our people to make it vibrant. And we must make sure that industry executives understand that, and there are some that don't. And the final thing I think we need to advance, as we have already started, and that's cooperating with national societies and other countries to pursue a greater public recognition of our profession and its members. I don't think we're paying enough attention to the industry members. In spite of all that they've told us, we persist in not addressing their needs. More practical publications, closer relationship with industry, greater respect for our profession. I want progress in IEEE to occur because of us, not in spite of us. I'll stop there because I think during the question and answer period, we'll have an opportunity to address many issues, or at least I hope so. Thank you.
Our first question, of course, has got to be the one, why do you want to be president of the IEEE?
In 1 minute.
1 minute. And we're counting.
I've spent the last 30 years very much involved with the career and professional activities of both students and regular members of the IEEE. It's very important to me to do all that I can to help improve those careers that we all have, the educational experiences we have and everything else. And so my whole life's work, both as an academic and time in industry and on the IEEE, has been moving in that direction. And at this point in my life, I would like very much to be able to get out there and do all I can to help you with your careers.
Several points. I became involved before I became VP TAB in the Globalization Initiative, and I'd like to, as president, have the opportunity to continue that thrust forward, which, as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, I think is a very important one. Secondly, I was involved in the Strategic Planning Committee in producing the strategic plan. And again, as president, I would like to have the opportunity to work actively towards its implementation. And third, I do feel there are some real needs that must be addressed for the United States members, and there also I would like to spend a considerable part of my energies as president in effecting changes that will strengthen that organization. There you are. Thank you.
Well, I guess I really want to be there because I love the IEEE and I've made it my life, and I don't know what I could do if I don't make it. But I also have a concern that I'd like to see a little more balance in the leadership, not for my sake, not for other people, but for the public's sake, to know that we have a balance in the leadership. We've had it heavily weighted outside of industry in recent years, and I think it's time to have an industry person who's grown up through it and has some of the sensitivities of that position in place, and I'd like to be that person. Thank you.
All right, Wally, how does the IEEE encourage or instill the concept of lifelong learning in our members?
Well, the gentleman to my right are probably more qualified to address that question, but I'll tell you I got a real interest in it, although my span out there now to work with is getting shorter. But it's a culture change, certainly for those who want to involve in lifelong learning. They've told us they want it. We need to put in place a little looser system, I think, in the curricula that allows it to be discussed, at least at the lower undergraduate level, and eventually we need in the graduate programs and in the person that's already out there working, provide those opportunities and encourage industry to support their attendance at upgrading their education.
First of all, I think the IEEE and to a great extent the educational environments that we find worldwide don't normally do a very good job of instilling in the student, later the engineer, a desire for lifelong learning. I think that's a major thing that we have to do. It's part of the skills things that I was talking about earlier. In a university environment, we must help the communities, the educational communities, understand the importance in this area of having active IEEE student branches. And I think within a very spirited, high esprit de corps group of students that you can have with an active IEEE student branch, you can do much more for promoting the importance of lifelong learning to one's career. Professional stuff really comes more from the student branch than it does from the classroom. Outside of that, we need to develop a variety of programs. One of the potential programs that we're doing now in that area, and we've had for a long time, has been the Student Professional Awareness Conference program that's worldwide at this point in time. This is where we help students pick up more the need for having a positive attitude about lifelong learning. We're also now at the present time, at least in regions 1 through 6, making a major effort to put forward a program that will do that in the various sections. And so that is an area that we've got to do a lot of work on. I think we've got some real good ideas on how to accomplish some of that.
Lifelong learning is a fact of life. If you want to stay competitive, I think our members recognize it. I think it's our job to produce, in combination with universities and other institutions, the materials that will allow them to stay competitive. We've not done a very good job in the past. I think we are now groping for solutions to that issue. I think it's incumbent that we be successful in that area. Certainly our members need it.
All right, the next question we'll start with Don. What is an example of a specific plan you have for improving products and services for all IEEE member segments?
One of the things that we've struggled with, and those of us that have served as editors of journals are well aware that, as Wally mentioned in his earlier comments, that there's a great need within the IEEE to produce publications that meet the needs of the working engineer at various levels. One of the emphasis within TAB this year has been to further encourage the development of those materials. As president, all one can do is urge that be continued, that ever be continued, and particularly appeal to the membership that if in fact we are to see more books on applications and more journals with applications and design materials, urge the membership that that can come from only one place, and that is the member and colleagues that write those materials. We must go out actively and seek those materials. That is the way, I think, to change those products and bring that to life. It is difficult. I think many of us have tried and know it's difficult, but there I think we need further emphasis, and perhaps the time is ripe now that we'll see more response.
I certainly support that, but I would also think that what I would want to accelerate is the use of our technologies in getting publications out so that the member is somewhat transparent to all the issues that are out there relating to delays and participation in IEEE. So I would want us to, if you like, to use a buzzword, use the information highway more effectively. I don't think we can afford to ignore that any longer.
IEEE publishes about 25% of the world's literature in the area of electrotechnology. We do publications very well. We do very well with transferring of technical information to people. We can improve some of those, but I think the area that we've fallen far short is helping members with the skills they need to have to be employed and to remain employed. I'm looking at skills like communication skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The ability to do design is a skill. We do nothing to help exercise that skill. We also need to help them with management skills, team building skills, research skills. So the IEEE needs to, at this point in time, not only to develop programs that help and are targeted toward those skills, but also to help engineers, our members, understand the need to take advantage of such programs.
Industry, government, academia provide major support to the IEEE through their support of IEEE volunteers. Changes in the economic world order threaten that support. How will you sell the value of the IEEE and direct participation in IEEE activities, specifically to industry? Don?
I think as many members know, and certainly the people in this room know, the IEEE for some years now has been working exactly in that direction. My own feeling is that in my own career, the skills I learned in the IEEE stood me in very good stead in my own career. I think the problem with, in many cases with the employers is that they're not close enough to the process to really appreciate what goes on and what the value is, and it is incumbent upon us to take that message to industry, and in fact for a couple of years now, and something that I certainly would continue, wherever we go with board meetings and tab meetings and tab colloquia, we meet with industrial leaders to determine first of all what they see as the need of their employees that the IEEE might fulfill, and also to make sure that they understand what it is that the IEEE offers to their employees. And I think that needs to be continued, refined, and made more effective as we learn more.
I think one thing that industry recognizes is value added. And our problem is not so much, I believe, that we are not value adders, but we're not communicating it well enough. And it's a big job. It's not a job for a president. It's his responsibility to get something moving. And I would like to accelerate visits with at least major industries in the various communities in which our members work and demonstrate in a one-on-one visit. And of course, that's why I say it's not just the president's job. It's every section chairman, it's every technical society president. We got to mobilize our effort to make sure industry knows we do add value, and it's absolutely essential for his success and the success of his company to have us on side and working for him. And I would encourage and accelerate that.
Or her company.
Or her company.
Thank you very much. I was listening for that.
The thing that industry right now doesn't fully understand is what an engineer is. And that misinformation needs to be very badly corrected. An engineer becomes more valuable, as long as they maintain their skills, more valuable to a company as they get older. And a lot of companies have made serious mistakes by laying off the higher paid engineers, and that generally the older engineers, and then trying and fit in a new young person lacking all the experience and the information that an older engineer has, and learn to their unhappiness that that was a bad move. We need, for engineering companies that hire engineers, to understand that having a member actively involved in the IEEE is good for business. The ability for that person to attend technical meetings, to network with other technical people. There's a lot of benefits to a company when their employees are active members of the IEEE. We need to get that information out. We need to work on the image. We need to work on using engineers as a resource and a lot of other things which I don't have time to go into now.
What becomes of standards in a world where proprietary technology is promoted by lawyers, company budgets won't fund travel and time to attend meetings, and international standards cost money because of the expensive meetings?
A couple of things. First of all, I really look forward to Wally's answer, because he can describe in somewhat more detail the new system that's being put in place that will allow worldwide participation in the development of standards without the need to meet face-to-face using the electronic means. So I think the participation worldwide is no longer the issue in terms of expense, or should not be. In terms of proprietary information, we, I think, understand as engineers the value of a patent system and the value of standards in promoting a healthy industrial environment in which competition can be fostered and sustained. I think proprietary technologies will exist, but these days it's extremely difficult, I think, to restrict technology development within any geographic entity. So I really do not see that any change from the inevitable directions that we are taking now as an institute, which is to foster an openness in technology development, which will benefit ultimately all of us. We have to go beyond the immediacy of the kind of restrictions that we've seen in some countries. I think they're ill-advised. I think the IEEE needs to make sure that its voice is heard in opposing such restrictive measures.
I had an interesting meeting some years ago with the chairman of ISO, and explaining that I don't understand why standard system is not more open in Europe and other places. And he said, you've got to remember that when we write a standard in Europe, this was before EC, we write a standard which is controlled 50% by the market and 50% technical basis. And when you write a standard in IEEE, it's about 80 to 85% technical and 15% maybe a little bit under market pressures. And I hope we never lose that, because the IEEE produces voluntary standards. They're not mandatory, and we follow a consensus process which are under the rules of ANSI, and also in other countries, the SCC in Canada and the Australian Standards Association. I hope we never dilute down to the point where we let the lawyers and the well, I'll include not the economists, but the financial people as well, to control the standard system. We must maintain voluntary standard system. I believe it should be such that we're working towards elimination of duplication using international, write them in internationally accepted language, so that if they're to be advanced to a national standard or an international standard, they're in good shape. And not to lose the technical competence of that standard, and not to lose the user, the matrix on the committee that makes sure all interests, particularly users, are in there.
I think from the question, I see two parts to it. The first one is the cost of developing an international standard in terms of people, resources, and funds. Let me get back to that in a second. The other issue is whether or not we should have and strongly participate in developing international standards. From my own perspective, I think it's extremely healthy for a membership, no matter what country they're in, to have international standards. That can only improve competitiveness and the ability for all of us to do well in an open marketplace. The important issue, though, whenever you develop international standards is to have a consistency which will help people protect their intellectual property rights. So in the process of doing this, we need to make sure that in place are things that will protect the engineer and, in the case of their employers, the employers themselves. In terms of cost of people and travel expenses, I think that's changing dramatically, as was said with the more electrical approach using email and other kinds of electronic communication. And I think those will make and continue to make developing international standards at least affordable.
What are you going to do to foster the globalization process of the Institute? How can we achieve effective globalization and make sure that the U.S. members do not feel neglected or feel that they are heavily subsidizing the members outside North America? Will we not need to decide soon, U.S. or international? Don?
Well, I don't think that the decision on U.S. and international is an either or. I think the decision has been made a long time ago, in 1963, that the IEEE would be a global organization. In terms of fostering that global structure in a constructive way, there are several initiatives that TAB took and that now has been adopted, that have been adopted by IEEE, namely to decentralize our organization and have service centers in Brussels and now in Singapore. And I expect the Institute, and I certainly would strongly urge the Institute to continue that effort so that members can be served locally by a staff that is familiar with local circumstances, and where also phone calls and so on can be answered in more or less the same time zone instead of in an antipodal situation as we have for many parts of the world. I think that's a staff decentralization that's important. What is interesting to me that as we have discussed and pressed forward in the global arena in TAB, that we now have societies with membership as high as 50% non-US and with a similar ratio in the governing boards of those institutes. It varies across TAB, but there is a clear initiative underway that has been supported and that I've supported for a long period of time, and I would continue to support that in the future. The third aspect is that the decentralization of services also allows us to operate at local economic levels and to provide services at local economic levels, and therefore bypass to a certain extent the adverse impact of salary ratios of 30:1. It is obviously far cheaper and far more effective for us to send bit streams of information around the world, which are then locally reproduced, rather than shipping paper around the world, which is slow and expensive. So I think all of these areas, if we are to be effective as an institute, we must promote all three aspects.
I'm a big supporter of globalization because I don't think any country, US or anybody else, is going to survive industry-wise and therefore will vastly affect our memberships and our working climate. I don't think any of them are going to survive without recognizing that they're in a global marketplace, and we have to make sure that we put in place, to a greater degree than we have now even, systems and mechanisms and processes that will allow our people to participate without great expense. And that doesn't mean subsidizing. That means using, as I said before, our technologies to get there. My experience in standards, which is my most recent experience, is that it works very well. Once they know that they're getting something out of it, you do have the international participation. I think of our 32,000 members that are involved in writing standards, 18% of them now are outside, and we want to put in a process, an automatic process that allows that to grow and grow fast without having the cost of sitting down at meetings and travel.
IEEE has always been an international organization, so this thrust with globalization is a complex issue. Why focus on that word instead of saying, hey, we're an international organization, this is what we are? I think a lot of different people view globalization in different ways. Some would like to see an IEEE that when you look at it, you can't see any character to it at all. That it's an organization that looks like a universal organization. No longer looks like a U.S. organization. Doesn't look like any kind of a strong professional organization at all. My view of globalization is that it should only be done if it does not dilute what we are doing for a significant portion of our membership. I would not support an IEEE that does that. I rather see an IEEE that becomes global and a globalization where we do more now for the U.S. members and take those kinds of things that we're doing well for the U.S. members and do those for the members in regions 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I've been in some of those regions, and they want some of those services. They want some of those helps in their professional careers.
Do you think we should be as aggressive in eliminating committees, publications, meetings, etc., as we are in adding them?
We should, and
Yes, very well.
let me try and say this carefully. We should never have a meeting that isn't necessary. We should never have a meeting that goes longer than necessary. Does that mean that's exactly what we do in the IEEE? No way. Information exchange many times takes place and there's a reason for having committees and meetings. And I think as long as there's a need for it, you can't have too many. There's also committees that do work. And I think within the IEEE, we really must do an awful lot more to help those committees use people's times, especially volunteers' times, much more effectively. I think we waste huge amounts of volunteer resources by not doing a much better job of scheduling and arranging for committees and meetings and stuff like that. I hope that's what the question is after.
I would say amen to that, but with some exceptions. One of the things that struck me some years ago when I happened to ask how many members are actually active in the IEEE as volunteers, and I got in round numbers for TAB was 30,000. I later learned that in the standards area it's more like 70,000. And I think the value of membership in the IEEE to a very large extent depends on active involvement of people. Inevitably that generates groups of people that will get together. I'm not so sure that you necessarily want to minimize that. What you want to minimize is the waste of time and the length of meetings and the unproductive component. We are very fortunate that, again, we are responsible for developing technology that allows interacting electronically. And certainly in my 2 years as TAB VP, it's become very evident to me that the use of email has simplified and expedited a lot of things. The attendant problem is that now people expect things to happen much more quickly. But I do feel that with modern technology, we can make the meetings more effective, more productive, and at far less cost. I would feel that if in fact we have all of the members active in some aspect of the IEEE, we will have more meetings, but they will be more productive at lower cost and more effective.
I guess I come down on the side of somewhere in between running this like a business and running it like a volunteer organization, demanding a lot of its members. And that's a difficult thing to decide which side you want to go on that. I think we can't run it like a business. If we did, we could have a lot less committees, a lot less people around this room, and get on with it. But I don't think that's what we're all about. On the other hand, you can get a terrific proliferation of committees and duplicative action in committees. I remember as a neophyte coming to the board 10 years ago on the board of directors and finding out that there was another body called TAB, and that I was a RAB, and somehow we had liaison people running between the two, not so much to liaison, but to find out if they were forming a committee on minorities and engineering, for instance, we better do it in RAB too, and you had all this going on. But you have to decide on, provide for people to participate in this organization, and to some extent you do have to have duplication. And so I would say I come down, when it comes down to taking a decision as to whether it's an efficient business operation or whether it's providing the membership and the members a chance to work in committee, I would have to come down on the side of the members.
How do you stand on increased dues when money is short?
I guess when you read my statement, you'll see that I think we have to pursue something which I think is being pursued now in making our organization healthy and solid financially. And we have to make sure we keep an ever increasing watch on the efficiency of the organization. And then when we've done that, we need to make sure we review new programs and assess their value against what the members are prepared to pay. I think our members, my own opinion is our members will pay if they see they're getting value. But if it's just going to shove the dues up for something that's not apparent to them, I have a lot of problem with that. So I would summarize it by saying I would not eliminate dues increase, but I would work hard to keep it to a minimum and get the programs out there that our members want. I really believe we put a lot of programs on the street that we think they need rather than listening to them as to what they need. And there could be some savings in that and therefore less dues.
Several years ago, IEEE passed a $10 dues increase and at the same time cut down the number of issues of the Institute to 6 from, I think at that point, maybe 9 or 11, and significantly decreased the quality of Spectrum as a publication. What a message we sent to our membership, especially the 40% who only get the Institute and Spectrum. We went ahead and jacked up their dues $10 and yet cut out or significantly decrease the quality of our communication with them and their reasons for belonging. I cannot support dues increases that don't come from an efficiently run organization that will use those increases to enhance or improve the quality or quantity of services to the membership. If we do have a dues increase, we must make sure that the members see something better for them in that increase.
Yeah, the issue is in fact not a standalone issue of simply the level of the dues. Incidentally, the IEEE has perhaps a unique problem with dues because we are global, and as we all know, the income of engineers across the world ranges, the ratio from max to min is as high as 40-to-1. Therefore, we have a particular problem that most other professional organizations do not have. The problem, though, is not simply a matter of the level of the dues, but as was mentioned here before, the perception of quality received. It certainly is incumbent upon all of us in a leadership position to make sure that as the dues are levied, that the overhead aspect of that is kept to a minimum and that it's clearly seen and understood by the members that the vast majority of the dues that are paid go towards services and products. The only way that they will accept higher dues when they are needed is if indeed they feel that the products that are being delivered meet their needs and are of value to them, that the IEEE is in fact a valuable institution to belong to. So when we consider dues other than those parts that are dictated by inflation, we better make sure and should make sure in the future that those increases reflect value gained as perceived by the members.
The final comments will begin with Wally.
I'd like to stress, I guess, some of the points I made earlier about what I want. I do want to get a greater vote out. I don't know how we do that, but please press anybody you talk to vote, no matter who they're voting for. IEEE is in a process of transition, and a lot faster transition that we have experienced in the past. It's becoming more relevant, more responsive, and more proactive, and I think that's good, because if we don't, we're going to fall behind and the world is moving fast. But as we progress, it'll be important to have in place the kind of leadership that understands our strengths and can adjust to these new initiatives. And I want to bring my experience and expertise to that. I'm going to be stressing an improved economy needs a strong industry performance, which in turn requires the use of our technologies and our engineers. And that message must go forth. Thank you.
Chuck?
Of the three candidates for president, I am the one who's had almost my entire IEEE career in the area of members' careers and things that affect them professionally. I've been driven to work in that area, and as IEEE president, I would continue to put most of my efforts in promoting those things that will help an engineer have a 30 or 40-year career, a productive career, a rewarding career, and at least a pleasant one, if not an exciting career. Engineers are viewed as commodities by most industries and companies worldwide in many cases, and that's not right. Your IEEE president must use all of the skills that they may have to try and change some of that so that people can understand that engineers, especially in companies, are an extremely valuable resource. We're not going to be able to maintain the kind of manufacturing we need to have both in the U.S. and worldwide without a strong engineering resource base. We're not going to be able to eliminate or significantly reduce major problems in the environment, major problems with our various infrastructures worldwide, even healthcare. Healthcare will never be affordable anywhere unless engineers make it so. So your IEEE president must be a very strong force in helping to promote that, not only by himself, but also with the volunteers within this organization. And I thank you for the opportunity to have been able to answer some of your questions today.
Don?
In talking with members worldwide, it seems that their concerns fall in three areas. One, help me be successful in my career. Recognize my work. Give me an avenue through which my good work can be recognized, and help me by making sure that my profession and my institution is recognized. And thirdly, help me in my efforts to gain greater job security. Those are the three areas that the members feel we should emphasize in all that we do. They are fairly simple statements. To implement programs to meet those is far from a simple task. I think you, as you've listened to us, and certainly as I've listened, I think you have three fine candidates. The difference in our agendas are not that great, so inevitably you will look at the difference in experience that we bring potentially to the job of presidents. In my own case, as you know, I've been active in the technical area of the Institute for quite a number of years, and prior to that in the Providence section and in the New England Council, the Central New England Council. So I think I've had fairly broad exposure to the problems, the issues, and the successes of our Institute. I bring that to the Institute potentially, as well as my management experience in running a not-for-profit institution. It turns out not very different in size and in budget from that of the IEEE. Working with all of the boards, and it does require all of the boards to work together, I will focus on improving the Institute's ability to fully serve the technical and professional needs of the member. There ultimately is where the rubber hits the road. And the office of President, in many ways, as a colorful member of the body politic in the United States mentioned when he was in the White House does make a bully pulpit. I think the presidency of the IEEE makes a bully pulpit for advancing many of the issues that need to be addressed and where we need to make progress. It's great to be here. Thanks for all your questions, and I look forward to the election. And like Wally, I urge everyone who possibly can find a ballot to vote.
This time I'd like to thank our candidates for addressing some pretty tough questions. Thank you.